Hello and welcome to the Handheld Report. Today we have another Pimax Portal emulation test. Today we will be testing how well each of the Pokemon games run on the Android 10 fork of Yuzu Android. Now, some caveats for this video is that I will not be testing the 3 Pokemon games that have native Android versions. That's Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Cafe Mix, and Pokemon Quest. Also, in order to help prevent this video from getting taken down, there won't be as much footage as I normally put in one of my videos. With that said, let's get right into it. First up, we have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and currently the games don't boot. Whenever I tried to start up the games, Yuzu just crashed out. Next up, we have Pokemon Legends of Arceus. And while the game does boot and can get into the actual game, there are too many graphical issues for the game to be playable. Next up, we have Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and these games run perfectly fine. After about 45 minutes of gameplay, I ran into no major issues with frame rate or graphics. Battles work fine, all the text appears properly, sound is also fine. Currently, I would rate Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl as fully playable. Next up, we have Pokemon Sword and Shield. So, Sword and Shield does boot up, and for the first 15 or 20 minutes or so, it seems like the game runs pretty fine. However, once you get to the wild area, you notice the game can't keep its frame rate above 15 frames. This is most likely due to all the Pokemon popping in and running around, but it makes the game feel like it's moving in slow motion, and it's really unpleasant to play. While the battles and raids do have a decent frame rate, the fact that you can't really do anything in the wild area due to low frame rate makes the game kinda unplayable. So overall, I would rate it as barely playable. Like, if you really wanted to play the game like this, you could, but it's not recommended. Next up, we have Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. And similarly to Pokemon Sword and Shield, the main problem is the frame rate is terrible when you're walking around in the world. The frame rate gets so low that it can't even read the analog stick input properly. But besides that, everything else in the game seems to work properly. You can catch the Pokemon as you're supposed to, even the gyro controls work. So overall, just like with Sword and Shield, I would give this a barely playable rating. If you really wanted to, you could play the game like this, but it would be very unenjoyable. Next up is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. And this game runs perfectly fine. However, since the frame rate won't stay stable, the audio crackles a bit. Besides that, everything seems to run as it should, so I would rate the game as fully playable outside of the audio issue. Next up, we have Pokkén Tournament DX. And when you first start the game, it seems like everything is running normally until you get into a battle and you realize the image issues make it currently unplayable. At this time, none of the characters have any details, so you can't really see what anyone's doing. So at this time, I would rate it unplayable.
Alrighty, I guess we better start off learning how to go ahead and try. You can use the directional buttons to move around the field. You can also jump with the B button. Press the same direction twice on the directional buttons, you can dash step forward and back or side to side.
And finally, we have new Pokemon Snap. And for this game, everything seems to run perfectly fine. The cutscenes play as they're supposed to, there are no audio issues, all the Pokemon load in, you can take their pictures just fine, and so on. So I would currently rate this game as fully playable. And with that, we reach the end of the test for the Pokemon games on Yuzu. Overall, I would say Yuzu itself has not progressed far enough on Android to make the games everyone wants to play playable yet. However, you can play Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, new Pokemon Snap, and Mystery Dungeon DX, which is pretty good. And nearly every other Pokemon game that is available will more than likely be playable on the Pimax portal. All the Game Boy games, the Game Boy Advance games, the DS games, the 3DS games, the GameCube games, and that one Wii game are all more than likely going to run perfectly on the Pimax portal. On top of that, you have ROM hacks and fan games that are also more than likely fully playable. It's important to remember when dealing with devices like this that you have access to over 6 generations of video games in the palm of your hand, basically. Just because it can't play the newest, most cutting edge in emulation doesn't mean the device is lesser or anything like that. While Switch emulation on Android is cool, it's still also very new and has a lot of work left before it's at a really great place. But now, with that said, we've reached the end of this video. If it helped you in some way, please leave a like. If you want more content like this, please subscribe. And if there's another set of games you want me to test on the Pimax portal, please leave me a comment below. This has been a Handheld Report production, and I hope you have a great day.